people are skipping, and it really costs a lot of points in the long run. So when I'm looking at these absolute values, no matter if it's an equation or an inequality, what is the very first thing we have to do? Get it by itself. Get the absolute value by itself. So how do I get rid of that 10? Divide by 10. Alright, so then I have the absolute value of 5 minus 6m is greater than 5. Okay, once the absolute value is by itself, then we ask ourselves, is this an and or an or statement? Or, great or is an or. So when we do ors, we set up two separate problems. The first one, all we do is drop the absolute value. The second one, we flip the inequality and make it a negative. All right, you'll notice at that step, it is no longer an absolute value. Now I have two problems and I am solving each of those problems individually. So what would I do here? So I get negative 6m is greater than 0. And then what do we do? Divide by negative 6. If you divide by a negative, what happens to your inequality? So m is less than 0. How do we graph less than 0 on the number line? Open circle at 0, going to the left. All right, this one. What do we need to do? Subtract our 5. So we have negative 6m is less than negative 10. Divide by negative 6, which flips the inequality. Negative 10 divided by negative 6, it doesn't work out perfectly. What does that give us? Thank you. So then, when we graph it, it's an open circle at 1.6, and it's everything greater, so going to the right. So the ors, when we graph them, we get two separate pieces. All right. Are we okay on that one? Let's talk about number 2 together. What would we have to do first? Times 7, because we have to get the absolute value by itself. So I have the absolute value of negative 6 plus 10n greater than or equal to 21. All right, so and or or. Or. So two separate problems. All right. So then we solve each of those. The absolute values are gone now, so we add our 6. Divide by 10. So n is greater than or equal to 2.7. Equal to, you guys are pretty good at that. That means closed circle. Greater than is going to the right. So for the second one, if we add our 6, we have 10n is less than or equal to negative 15. Divide by 10, so n is less than or equal to negative 1.5. So that's two examples of the ors. Get the absolute value by itself, and we set up two separate problems and solve them. We're going to do one more together, and then I'm going to have you guys try one. What would I do on problem 3? subtract the 8. Okay, we still have the absolute value symbols. We need to get rid of this negative 6. It's multiplied, so we have to divide. If you divide by a negative, what happens? The sign flips. Okay, now it is a less than. Less than means and. When we solve an and, we know it's just going to be one big piece. It's going to be in between two values. So we say negative 4 is less than 9n minus 4 is less than 4. Then what? Add the 4. And if we do it in the middle, because there's two inequalities, we do it on both ends. So we have 0 is less than 9n is less than 8. Divide by 9. So 0 is less than n is less than 8 over 9. Doesn't work out real nice, was it? As a decimal? Thank you. So, what this means, we're starting at 0, no equal to, so open. This goes to almost 0.9, and it's just in between them. So, 2 open circles and just shading in between. I want you guys to try number 4 for me. I put this one on here. It was a little more challenging. And we've had some problems with these, knowing what the first thing we had to do was. So if I'm trying to get my absolute value by itself, where do we start? Plus 1. Okay, then it's multiplied with 7, so we divide by 7. Since that's a positive, we're not flipping our inequality. And that gives us 17. So now, once the absolute value is by itself, we decide, is this an and or an or? And. So, and, we put it in between the negative and the positive. So we say negative 17 less than or equal to Negative 5n minus 3 is less than or equal to 17. Add 3 to all pieces. Then what? And when we divide by that negative, what else happens? Signs flip. Okay, so we get 2.8 is greater than or equal to n is greater than or equal to negative 4. Okay, that's written very strangely, but we've seen that before, where essentially the whole problem is backwards from what we expect. And we can fix that. You just basically flip everything. We bring the negative 4 less than or equal to n less than or equal to 2.8. So equal to's tell me close circles at negative 4 and positive 2.8. And we are shading in between. All right. So absolute values. Less than is the and, greater than is the or. Are we okay with that part? What I want to do now, we're not going to do all of them, but I want to flip it over and look at the front here, and I want to compare some things. So when we took the quiz, a few people were setting up all the problems like they had absolute values. When we look at these, do we have any absolute value bars on this side of the page? No. So if there's no absolute value bars, we just solve them as they are written. So we're just going to pick a couple of these and try right now. Number 1, it's an or, so essentially I have two separate problems, and I expect my graph to go two different directions, but there's no absolute values. I'm not adding anything else. I'm just solving the problems that were given to me. So for this one, we would subtract our 1. So we have x is greater than or equal to 2. Yep. This one you can divide by 4/3. If you do that, put the 4/3 in parentheses on your calculator. You could also multiply by 3/4. And we get less than negative 6. So greater than or equal to 2, close circle at 2, going to the right. Less than negative 6, open circle at negative 6, going to the left. All right. Do you guys see the difference between that problem and the absolute values we were solving? Okay. There were no vertical bars on that one to start with. Let's do number 6 together. So this is one big one. We have two inequalities, so essentially we have 3 sides. Whatever we do it 3 times. So it's an and. When we graph it, we're just going to get in between two numbers. So what do we do first? So negative 14 less than or equal to 2x is less than 4. And then we can divide by 2. So negative 7 less than or equal to x less than 2. So how do we graph that? What do we do? Open circle at 2, close circle at negative 7, and just in between the 2. All right. So far, so good? So we've kind of talked about the compound, we've talked about the absolute values. Something we haven't done in a while are these questions, where I'm giving you something in words and asking you to write the inequality. All right, so a number. What could we use for a number? X in whatever your favorite letter it would be is no more than. So it can't be more. That means it could be less than or equal to. So less than or equal to 35. Your grade, so our grade we could call X, must be at least 70 to pass. So at least 70. That means what could it be? Right, it's that much or above, so greater than or equal to 70. The speed limit, so that's X. Okay, equals 65, but let's think of this in terms of an inequality. The speed limit, when you're driving, can you go above the speed limit? No. Can you go below? Yes. So, you should not go above. Good life lesson here. So, huh? We're not talking about me right now. We're talking about what you should do. So less than or equal to. All right, X more than means greater than. Okay. Are we okay with writing those inequalities? All right, the last thing. I want you guys to try this one on your own first. So first thing you need to do, read the question, solve the inequality, and then see if you can figure out how you would answer that. A lot of different answers on this, but it looks like the first part we're pretty consistent on. So to solve this inequality, what do you do first? Subtract 4. So we have to do it from all pieces because we have two inequalities in that problem. So we get negative 10 less than or equal to 2x is less than 4. Now what do we do? Divide by 2. So negative 10 divided by 2 is negative 5, is less than or equal to x is less than 2. So if I go to graph this, negative 5 has an equal to, so that would be closed. 2 would be open. I want to know which ones are not in the solution. The solution is anything that's in that shaded part of my number line. So is 2 in my shaded part? Why not? It's an open circle. There's no equal to. So it ends at 2, but it's not equal to 2. So 2 is not part of the solution. Is 0 inside the shaded part? Yes. Is negative 5 in my shaded part? Yes, because it is a closed circle. It counts. Is negative 3? Yes. Is negative 6? No. So the two answers that did not work are 2 and negative 6. It's a good trick question to make you think. Okay. So 4 minus x over 7 is less than 5. First question I'm going to ask you on every problem. Do we have the absolute values?
No.
No. So we are not making another problem. This is the only problem we're solving. So to get x by itself, what do we do first? So negative x over 7 is less than 1. Then what would we do?
7.
And when you multiply by a negative, what happens to your inequality? Flip. So we have x is greater greater than negative 7. So that's our solution. When we graph it, greater than would put an open circle, and it was everything larger, so it went to the right. What else? Give me some more. Yes, sir.
47 equals 9.
Negative 9. Yes. Let me look at that one.
You do that?
Yep. Number 4. So what's the first step? No absolute value, so this is the only problem we're solving. So 4x is less than or equal to negative 36. Divide by 4. Since it's a positive, we don't flip. So x is less than or equal to negative 9. So on your number line, it would be a closed circle at negative 9. And it's everything less than, so going to the left. Alright, anything else on the first page? Okay, let's look at the second page. Towards the end of that page, we started getting into some of the longer ones. What do we need to look at? Number 11. Even if you got it right, you should probably make sure you're paying attention because we have a test tomorrow and this was last week. So we'll look at 10 and 11. Those are some of our multi-step problems. Good idea. Okay. First step. There's no absolute value, so we're not setting up a whole other problem. We just have to solve this one. So what would we do? Distribute. So that's 2x minus 18 minus 3x. Okay, right here. These are on the same side. So you don't have to subtract 2 to move it over. You're already on the same side, we just combine like terms. So we have 2x minus 3x is negative x. So now, we need anything with an x on one side and anything without it on the other. We prefer the x's to be on the left. So I can add this x. Then in my 24, we would subtract. Okay, so then the final step to get x by itself, divide by 6, so x is greater than negative 6. So on our number line, there would be an open circle at negative 7, going to the right. Is that okay? Yeah, absolutely. So number 11 is going to be very similar. You have to remember first on these problems, you're distributing if you need to. When things are on the same side, you just add or subtract as it's written. You don't have to act like you're moving it to the other side or anything. So problem 11. Okay, so if we distribute, we have a negative 9x plus 45 plus 9. because these are on the same side, we just combine them. So 45 plus 9 is 54. Now what do we do? Then what? Negative 12x is less than negative 12. So I have to divide, but if you multiply or divide by a negative, the inequality flips. So we get x is greater than 1. Take a look at that page and see if there's any others on there that you want me to look at. The next page started getting us into our compound stuff. And at the very bottom, what do you notice about question 17?
There's 2 lines.
Yeah, I'm gonna have an extra number line there. Mark off the bottom one. As an absolute value, which means we have to set up multiple problems. What do you want me to go over on this page? 15. So first, notice because we have 2 inequalities, whatever we do, we're doing to 3 different pieces. So first, subtract 5. So that gives me a negative 36 is less than 9x is less than 27. Then divide by 9. Negative 4. Alright, so how do we graph this? Right. When I labeled my number line, I counted by 2's. You didn't have to. So, it starts at negative 4 with an open. It's going to end at 3 with an open. It's one big one. It's an and. So we're just going in between those 2 numbers. Huh? Okay. Practice isn't hurting us at all. Did everybody get what they needed off 15? So first, add 10 to everything. Again, we know because there are 2 inequalities, that creates 3 sides. So whatever we do, we have to do 3 times. So negative 14 less than or equal to 2x is less than 4. Then so negative 7 less than or equal to x less than 2. So it was closed circle at negative 7, open circle at 2, just in case. When you get to 17, is that one an and or an or? Or. So you create two problems. 2x plus 8 is greater than or equal to 6. 2x plus 8 is less than or equal to negative 6. And how do we know we have to create those two problems? The absolute values. Once I write the two separate problems, the absolute value bars go away. And then you're just solving each of these ors. We expect them to go opposite directions. So let me graph this. Less than or equal to -7 would be a closed circle at -7 going to the left. Greater than or equal to -1 is a closed circle at -1 going to the right. So the great or is an or, two separate pieces when we graph it. The back page. What do we need to look at there?
23.
20.
I wrote it wrong. I don't know what it is.
Okay. A minimum number of 3. So we know we have a number. We know we have a 3, right? This really comes down to what inequality do we put in the middle. If 3 is the minimum, that means 3 is the smallest it can possibly be. So could it equal 3? Yes.
Greater.
But it can't be any smaller, so that's the greater than or equal. What about 19 or 20? Feel somewhat confident that somebody in the class missed at least one of those. Nobody wants to admit it? Alright. You guys step me through problem 20. I did. So we have a 2, absolute value of x minus 4, less than or equal to 8. Divided by 2. Okay, right now, absolute value is by itself. So is it and or or? Less than. And. No. I said it, I wrote it, and then I didn't do it. Yeah, thank you. So, how do we set it up with the ands? This is the other thing I'm seeing. Sometimes people drop their absolute value without making the big problem. Good. Good. So then we get 0. Good. So then on our graph, closed circles at 0 and 8. Shading in the 2. Is this getting easier the more we do it?
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I'm happy to work more problems if we need to, but otherwise, just have a few minutes. If you owe me any missing work, now would be a great time to work on that. You can ask some questions. No, I already marked it out.
No, I'm going to sleep.
Oh.
By a literal.
I guess that makes you.
Watch him put your name in the. Oh my
I just thought that.
I don't think that. You know, don't be like me, say in front of all the I ain't had no It's a sleeper.
Chief kinda hurts me. It's a sleeper cat, extended cat, not extra cat.
Good afternoon, members of the high school. This is Sarah Dillon with your afternoon announcements. Congratulations to members of the cross-country team who competed at the state meet on Friday. The girls team placed fifth overall in Class 2, and Brady Keller made all state honors with the sport discipline event. The annual Veterans Assembly will be Friday, November 10th at 2 o'clock. Please that mark in the last one of the Turtle Team complex will be asked to park in the lot. The annual canned food drive will be held next week.
Oh, it's not me.
Bring your food items or money to your first-hour class, no plastic. This food will benefit the people in our community, so please be generous. Not bring the food items per person or less.
After you're done here, you go to your night
The library and public department will be hosting rural wellness.
and then during your lunch break on both of them.
Library council, contact Rob Humphrey. Be sure to mark your calendar for the meeting on September 14th at 2 p.m. in the elementary cafeteria. Yearbooks are available for purchase. You can order online at Dolphins.com or bring money to Mr. Kirby's or Williams. The cost is $58 or $64 if you like your name on it. Don't forget to sign up for concessions at Miss Spalding. Last day to sign up is Thursday, November 9th. Football players, you will need to come by Coach Kirby's
I don't
class
have it.
and take up your equipment. Check in case.
What?
Equipment is due November 9th.
Fighting,
If everything is not turned in, it will be
Nobody's
placed on the
fighting.
final list. Thank you and have a great day.
Judaism.
Yeah.
No, they cost you. Yeah.
No, they don't.
These are all safe. For $90. Oh, right, well, yeah, I don't
Andy supported rights.